I just want to do the.
Yeah.
I can put the vehicle there, but
That's okay.
figure we can do some mental gymnastics.
Yeah. I'm tracking. I gotcha.
Tracking.
Also, another question coming in about blobfish. Have we discovered
I'm just coming up like a couple meters at a time.
We're back up to 0.7.
Have we seen any blobfish?
We definitely
Speed.
have.
2 meters.
I've seen a lot of blob sculpin lately.
Sculpins,
Yeah.
yes. I was just talking about one to a school group today. I really like blob sculpins. They're
Love them.
a great example of a fish highly adapted for the deep sea. They are all
There you
mouth
go.
and very little body. You know, and that they.
But those barbs, too.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about the barbs.
They have barbs on their body, which I believe are a defense against apex predators of octopus.
I would believe that.
It's against apex predators of different organisms.
So the blob sculpin, I believe, and this is based on a conversation I had with Andy Lamb in 2013, so I'm a little rusty on this content. But because we recorded one of the deepest sightings of a blob sculpin, new record for that species back then, and he was telling me that the barbs are to protect them from the giant Pacific octopus in the region we were operating in, which is the apex predator in that region.
Yes. And they're, turns out blob sculpins have some parental oversight. We saw some really cool blob sculpins, and they were defending eggs. There were pairs of blob sculpin each around a piece of hard stub straight around a rock, and they have bright pink eggs. So if you write blob sculpin into the search on Nautilus Live, you'll see that highlight too. Hello in Germany, hello in Arkansas. Thrilled to have you with us here. First dive of the expedition. So colonial, we got follow-up questions. Colonial siphonophores are in the chordata group, same as bony fish. So that is, although extremely unexpected, that is true. They have the same developmental patterns, which are the patterns that group those organisms together. And we are one highly differentiated line out of that, out of chordata, but so is that long see-through string organism that just went by.
For some reason, I thought all chordates had spines.
Well, they all have notochords.
They all have notochords.
And vertebrates have vertebrae, which are spines, I guess. So it's pretty much the tunicates and the salps that are the only invertebrates in chordata. And then there's the fish like hagfish and lampreys. And then it gets to then we separate it out into the bony fish and the cartilaginous fish.
Crushing it on the phylogeny questions.
Yeah.
I like to quiz my friends and ask them what do they think is most closely related to a shark? A human, a salmon, a frog, or a camel? And for some reason, people always seem to get it wrong, which is shocking to me.
Human.
Well, I don't know if it's a trick question.
Maybe they haven't watched the baby shark video.
Well, they all think it's a trick question, and they say humans are most closely related to sharks, and we all know that's not true. The answer is
salmon, right?
It's not salmon either. It's not camel, and it's not frog. It's all of them are equally related to sharks.
Stop it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You just gave away your party joke.
You would have been the hardest
What are you
TA in
using
college.
for metric for relatedness?
Well, our most recent common ancestor, the last, we all share a most recent common ancestor, and the last time, humans and frogs and camels are all tetrapods, which all evolved from kind of lungfish, which are all bony fish. And so we were bony fish, kind of. That's kind of misrepresenting evolution, but yeah. So the most recent common ancestor of humans, salmon, camels, and frogs all was much more recent than the last time we were related to sharks. Yeah.
What's the common ancestor we have with sharks?
I don't know. Some fish.
Okay, so the last time that cartilaginous fish and
was-
bony fish were related.
That's right.
I would love to
node of
use that line,
tree.
but I'm never going to remember it. I'm going to be like a rooster, a chicken,
Hey,
and
it doesn't
a
matter what
toaster and
animals you
walk
use.
into a
The
bar.
rooster is not an animal.
Told you I would mess it up.
Did someone say? Do you say siphonophores are cnidarians?
I did.
Is that the truth?
I just hit the Google machine.
I
It's
knew
true.
something was wrong.
I know. We're talking about
I was
tunicates.
talking about
We're like
colonial tunicates the
colonial
whole time.
tunicates. We meant colonial tunicates, not colonial siphonophores. But everything about a colonial organism still stands.
Well, I knew what I said earlier was disappointing my professors.
That's okay. Every time I hear colonial organism, I assume it's from the 1770s.
I know, and you're like, there's some bad stuff. Yeah.
They wore gray wigs.
Yes. And wooden shoes.
Wooden teeth.
Hippopotamus teeth.
Hippo
Those
teeth.
aren't the same thing. Do they use hippo teeth?
Yep. Gross.
Interesting.
Let hippos have their own teeth. Hashtag let hippos have their own teeth.
Might start
Starting
a
a
movement
movement.
there.
How about that trash tag, though? You seen that?
I like that.
There's a hashtag called trash tag.
Hashtag
where
crash tag. That's
People are picking an
nice.
area of their community,
Clean
taking
it
a
all
before
up.
picture, cleaning it all up, and then posting it with the hashtag.
I
Trash
love
tag. Yeah, it's
All
great.
about it.
Excuse me?
That's a feature.
Oh, okay. Just checking. I just wanted to distinguish which one was a feature and whether it was a
Yeah,
bug.
I think Trevor
Just
and I were
to
talking, it's
reinforce,
just
we're
an-
actually
it's an
moving
eye
the
rest.
vehicles to a different
Yes.
site.
High rest.
Yeah.
And we didn't just come up into the water column
a break.
to chat.
To talk about toasters, yep.
Take a break, you know, maybe even. Does it really matter what all those gauges say? Yeah. Just taking a break.
For a 30th of a second.
Yes. All right, Gab, I have another Young Explorer question for you.
Oh, okay.
What is the difference between Hercules and Argus?
Oh, man.
Give us some differences.
Okay, so the biggest difference that I can think of is that Hercules can move pretty much anywhere it wants within about 35 meters of Argus, though we like to keep it below Argus. And Argus has to sit still. It can only rotate at the end of its tether. So Herc is very maneuverable, and Argus is not really. I don't know. Herc has arms, and Argus is armless.
If left to their own devices, Argus would sink.
Herc would,
And Herc would float.
Yep. Argus has an instrument allowing it to see through the seafloor a few meters, and Herc does not. Herc instead has a similar acoustic instrument that allows it to know how fast it's moving over the ground. So I have different suites of instruments. Mostly Argus is used to keep Herc down at the bottom and not let it bob around with the ship. And Herc is used to do sort of the more close-up exploring.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you want to learn more, check out, open a new tab and check out the tech page. There's a bunch of photos
Yeah,
of
we can
the
go on at
vehicles too.
very great length about describing the two robots and their capabilities.
Robots.
Robots.
They're not robots.
Why not,
Call
Bob?
'em.
Because they're remotely operated by a human.
Well, they're
Does
not autonomous robots.
Well, a robot means it's autonomous.
I can't
Does
hear you. I want to know the answer to this, actually. Oh, your mic's just
they're
close,
not
I think.
robots because they're not autonomous. A washing
Yeah.
machine is more of a robot than an ROV.
Whoa. Washing machine.
Which is more closely related
Related.
to
Yeah. Toaster, washing machine.
Toaster is more autonomous.
What's the common ancestor?
Spark plug. Yeah.
laziness?
Yeah.
I think Wallace and Gromit had an autonomous toaster.
Common ancestor
Nice.
between a washer and an ROV. Let's all think on that one.
The vacuum tube.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with.
Oh, the
uh,
vacuum tube's
Canister
like
of electrons.
the equivalent of like a spinal cord.
well, I would say
A notochord or a spinal
it's a
cord? 'Cause we're-
notochord.
Yes.
Are we there
That,
yet?
that is an
No.
important distinction. I mean,
we got an
Yeah.
hour to go.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
I thought it was a lot closer.
Yeah, I did too.
Nope.
I thought you were
Nope,
joking,
sure
right? When you least expect it, right? He's gonna be like, "We're here." Just kidding.
Rennie
Going
likes to keep us on our
drop
toes.
the
Yeah.
drop the news on Aubrey.
Yeah.
Whoa, heard my name. Sorry. What's up?
No, it's
Oh,
fine.
nothing.
We're just saying Rennie's gonna, when you
Oh,
least expect
drop
it.
Yeah, I'll do
Oh,
that thing
no.
again
Change
where I
the
don't
note.
inform you with enough
Joke's on
time.
you. I'm not recording.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden we're just there and we're surveying.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So,
Oh,
Gabby, there's
you
a
did-
follow-up. Oh, go ahead.
Can continue.
Yeah, right.
Say something of no value.
I have no value. Oh.
I was going to say something not worth saying. Continue.
All right. Gabby, there's a follow-up question to your seeing through the seafloor. What do you mean that there is a tool that sees through the seafloor? Are we detecting the sediment or what's under it? How's it work? Talk
So
to us about
it's
that.
a sonar. It sends out a pulse of sound.
Mm-hmm.
It's low enough frequency that it can penetrate, I don't know, a few meters into the sediment, depending on the composition of the sediment. And at each sort of layer of the sediment that changes, there's this boundary where the speed of sound changes. And that causes some of the sound to be reflected and some of it to keep going. And each time it's reflected, we get a new pulse back at the detector on the vehicle. So if you separate by time, you can see these layers of different pulses coming back, and those give you the layers of strata. It's called a sub-bottom sonar.
Yeah, Gabby, great explanation. But what I'm focused on is the fact that the motor, I think, is the common ancestor between the washing machine and
Lots of viewers are
Hercules.
liking
Yeah,
Spark.
I think that's decent. I could go with that.
Because of the thrusters, you know. I'm
No,
kinda
no,
thinking,
not
like,
thrusters. I think the actual motor, the motor driving the pump.
Okay. Okay.
Because the thrusters are hydraulic, and there's no hydraulics in a washing machine. There's
It's
water.
full of water.
There's water.
Yeah.
have all
not
the
in your
ingredients for
washing machine.
hydraulics.
Yeah.
Water is the last common ancestor.
What about electricity?
Yeah, I think that's going back too far.
Yeah, there's wires. There's
I think
This
A
could be a
circuit-
really
a
good like
circuit
taxonomy lesson for students to develop. Like, what do all these things have in common? What do they not have in
this is
common?
the principle of parsimony.
One of these things is
Whoa.
not like the other.
Yes,
I
exactly.
really think you're onto something with the motor, though.
Mm.
But I
I'll
think
think
it's
about that some
I
more.
think it's an electric motor, not a hydraulic motor.
Do
Right.
toasters have a
the
motor?
electric motor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Because
think
they
so.
both have AC motors.
Toasters don't have a
Toasters
motor.
don't have motors.
Well,
No,
I think
why don't-
toasters are more related to space heaters than they are really.
Think of
space
how much you
heaters,
could
it's just
toast
much
with a
more
space
related to
heater.
horseshoe crabs.
Yeah.
But think of how much you could toast with the space heater.
I recently learned that horseshoe crabs are arachnids.
No, you gotta
No,
be kidding
really?
me.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
recent. Yeah, so
They,
they're.
so the world
Interesting.
recently learned this?
I think so. I haven't confirmed it
I'm
by
like-
reading the paper myself.
Well,
but I
I'm
heard it
really
from a
having trouble
secondhand
wrapping my
source.
brain around that, actually.
Well, I
Have you
don't-
ever
I
seen
like
their
them a lot
bodies? Have you
less now
flipped
that I
them
know that.
over?
Yeah.
So
They're like,
creepy.
What are they, like 345 million years old or
Pretty-
something?
pretty
Something
old.
like that.
Get
I'd
off
read that
my
paper,
lawn.
but I'd be
Yeah.
afraid it has photos.
Yeah. Ugh. Arachnids.
Grew up with those on the beach in Delaware.
And
Horseshoe
New,
crab.
New
And don't
Jersey.
they have like really like
Their blood is harvested.
pharmaceutically
Yeah.
Mhm.
valuable blood that's
Because-
also blue?
Blue
Yes.
blood.
Blue blood.
Because they have a copper oxygen carrying. Not
Ooh.
not a hemoglobin, but
Oh,
a
Yes.
okay. So they're
different globin.
not. So also, ice fish don't have hemoglobin,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know which globin they have.
But what's cool is we have now gotten to a point where we can, it used to be kind of like a, horseshoe crabs were getting pretty wiped out for this because they would like bleed horseshoe crabs out because they needed this. And fairly recently, it's got to be a year or two, that we can actually synthesize those compounds now. So we're no longer like rounding up horseshoe crabs in order to do that research, which
I
is
didn't
really cool.
realize that. That's
Yeah.
The survival rate of the, it makes it seem like we would just catch them and release them, but the survival rate was only like 30% or something.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Of when we would take. Yeah,
Now we
take the
just look
blood.
for ones with donor cards.
Yeah.
So less marine relevant, but llamas also have some special factor in their blood. So
Llamas?
Llamas.
You
so,
gotta be kidding
so
me.
llama blood is used for something in the veterinary or medical world.
That's really cool.
What exactly, I couldn't tell you.
It's actually interesting. The college I went to also had a veterinary college, and just I don't know, things that you never think
Yep.
about is like animals
gotcha.
having like blood donors.
Nobody's going anywhere.
And there would be like factors, like blood
Yeah.
factors in animals
It's not very exciting.
too.
Bob, do you want to drive Argus? The Pops are like, we're out.
That was a hard no.
Argus is great. I don't know why nobody
The
wants to
Bobs
drive
move
Argus.
as a unit.
I'll drive Argus.
What's the common Bob ancestor? Shared by the Bobs. Only Gabby appreciates my humor. It's a great boost.
We're bobless.
Ooh.
Objectively.
I agree it was.
Oh, now.
Got another hit on Bravo.
Most
me
things
see
I say
when.
are objectively funny.
All right, we got a question coming in of how did we get on board and join the program? You want to go around for this?
How did we?
Yeah, this is someone who's interested in getting into the oceanography field. So they're interested in the paths we took. I trained as a biologist, but I got on board through a science communication fellowship, which we run. If you're interested, check out the education tab. And I was a informal writer and working kind of in underwater film and in just that science storytelling
flattish.
perspective.
But yeah, we probably will be going a
I
little
think
down,
I took
so we'll
such an
be fine.
improbable path that it's not relatable, but I do have video engineering interns who come out from their undergrad or master's programs, and some of those end up coming back and working for me, so maybe that's a more accessible path.
I think that your path is a really important one because a lot of us get here by sort of strange and circuitous paths.
Okay,
and
so
I'm all for like following your heart and like ending up in like kind of a cool place. I think that that's a totally relevant thing.
Yeah, so I'm one of 20 people on the planet who knew what they wanted to do when they were 8 years old, and I pursued it. And I could not find a higher education opportunity that met my needs. And so I got trained as a motion picture specialist in the United States Army and did that job for 3 years, which was a real kick and great training, amazing training. And worked in video production for 30 some years, and was working with an organization that we were supporting some oceanography work in 2005 and then again in 2010, and that year I went to sea and just really kind of grew out of that, and that brought me to Nautilus eventually. And it's super fun because it's really challenging work. We can carry a very limited amount of spares, and these are very rich and sophisticated shipboard video systems that we have to keep running. We can't go back to port to get something. We can't swing by the Fry's buoy and pick up some parts.
ROVs are us.
Yeah, there's none of that. So
If there was one, it's in Victoria.
yeah, that's true. And we also get to teach and train the next generation of upcoming professionals and encourage them. So I enjoy all parts of it. But yeah, so my path was a little difficult. You know, first get 3 decades of experience isn't a good way to get into a field.
Looking for entry-level biologists, 30 years of experience required.
Yeah.
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 But Rennie and Avery both came through our internship program. So if you are interested in becoming an intern, check out the education tab, and those programs open
Yeah.
in the fall. About August, we'll put applications out, and they'll close in December. And these are paid internships to come aboard Nautilus in the fields of video engineering and filmmaking, ROV engineering, ocean science, seafloor mapping, and navigation.
Yeah, these are real
my path to
internships. They
internship
have,
was actually different though,
Yeah,
because
tell me that.
I was chosen through a program. I guess the Bay Area Boy Scout Council had an opportunity to send one Eagle Scout. So I was an Eagle Scout, and I was studying marine biology in college. So I applied through that, and I got chosen through that. Although the internship was the same as most, I suppose.
So Avery, are you an Eagle Scout?
I am an Eagle Scout.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was your final project?
I built a stairway at the Oakland Zoo in Oakland.
Cool.
Yeah. I was a big animal guy. I didn't know I would be going into marine stuff at all.
Was the stairway for animals or for people?
It was an emergency stairway to get up to the Australia exhibit alongside the fruit bat exhibit. It's mostly used by goats.
Sometimes I have an emergency and need to get to the Australia exhibit.
Well, the only way up there otherwise is a train. And so,
I'm sorry, what?
Goats on trains.
What kind of zoo is this?
it's like a little fun train that everybody can ride, but there isn't like a really a quick path up there. So I helped make this stairway up this pretty steep hillside.
Cool.
But yeah, it's right next to the goat exhibits, and they all like to slip through their fence. It's still enclosed, so they can't go anywhere, but they can walk around on the hillside. And
Goats love stairs.
poop on
Everyone
my
knows
stairway.
that. Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
We're about 50 minutes from the target.
Awesome.
Does that mean we're going to get there and hand it off? No.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. ROV valet. Here you go. No tips either.
Oh, man. Yeah, so please apply for our education programs. It is one of the parts of my job to read those applications. So always in the hype game.
I recently ran into, the first time I was on board the Nautilus, there were other interns aboard, and I was at the climbing gym and ran into a video intern I had met 3 years prior.
Oh, that's awesome.
And now he's in Vietnam doing like environmental videography, and it looks like he's gone on to do cool things. So this is definitely a cool place to get a start in, or a continuation.
Absolutely. Ed, can you talk a little bit about the satellite system? Questions coming in about, kind of what
Sure.
are the connection speeds that mean we can
Yeah.
actually stream and share the stuff we're doing right now?
So, internet connectivity on a vessel is a challenging problem to solve, and the technology that has solved it is really cool. We have a 2.4 meter satellite dish made by Cobham Seatel. And what it does, it's a very small aperture, and it's aimed at a satellite that is in geostationary orbit above the Earth, about 38,000 kilometers above the Earth, above the equator. And the challenge there is we're aiming at something the size of a minivan, about,
From 38,000 kilometers away?
Yeah. And the vessel is moving. So the way that's accomplished is the satellite is on a gimbal, and it's very finely balanced. When we balance these systems, we balance them to the weight of a single washer. in all axes. So if we were to turn off all the motors and you were to go there and we were either on land or in a
Argus sure is
stable like in
spacious.
port, and with the slightest push of your finger, the entire dish will make 3 or 4 rotations before it stops. It is just perfectly balanced. And because it's so finely balanced, we can use small motors to move it easily in very, very small increments. So there are sensors that tell
Pretty
it
spacious
what
in Argus.
direction it's moving in each axis. And then 100 times a second, these motors counteract that motion. So if we were to look inside the satellite dome right now, we're in fairly stable seas, but it would look like the satellite dish was moving around to us. But in reality, it's locked to a point in space, and we're moving around it.
Underneath it.
Yeah. So our bandwidth depends on the vessel. Some organizations go out and they want to send one stream back to shore, so they'll have about a 5 megabit upload and a 1.5 megabit download. I think we have 13 to 15 megabits of upload and 7 megabits down. So still, you probably have a better connection at your house now. I have fiber to my house with 100 megabits in each direction, and I don't have to share that with 50 people and some organizational needs. Satellite time at sea can be expensive, running in the $30 to $50 to $60,000 a month.
It's a big cell phone bill. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
it's a
huge
big
cell-
bill. And trying to find a satellite, each satellite that's geostationary, a lot of them are, some of them are global, so they have a very large footprint. So you can actually, those typically, the footprint of a global satellite is generally about a third of the Earth's population, so it's a very large footprint. Some of them are regional. So you can actually go up and get the a satellite. We're going to be on a global satellite when we're later in our season, so we're able to actually just connect to an Australian satellite when we're on our way to Hawaii.
I didn't know when the switch was happening. That makes sense.
Trying to connect to it from Los Angeles means that it is 5 degrees above the horizon, and that's difficult to shoot that far through the atmosphere, especially and not have an occluded view. One of the other challenges at sea is a satellite dish, it's going to stay pointed at that point in the sky regardless of which direction the vessel's headed. So the vessel could turn in a direction where something like the exhaust stack or the bridge or some other part of the vessel is blocking the view of that satellite. And so when we set a satellite up on a vessel, we do a study to see what headings
Are bad.
the bridge, right. And not only that, but we tell the satellite to turn off when it goes through those sections. So we're not transmitting, which is microwave energy, when we go through those headings, our occlusion zones. So it's a difficult problem, but the application of technology to solve it is pretty cool.
It's really cool.
Some vessels have 2 of these satellite dishes.
For
Because
parallel systems or redundant?
yeah, so what happens then is they put them on either side of the vessel. So as a vessel turns, when one dish hits its occlusion zone, the other one's coming out of its. And so you can be having a phone call over a satellite dish on a vessel equipped with 2 dishes, and it will seamlessly transfer your content from one dish to another. Even a file download, you don't even notice that there was a switch over between dishes. Now at $300,000 a piece, you probably don't want to put too many of those on your vessel. But when you look at a cruise ship, you'll probably see 6 to 8 of those on the top.
Wild.
We actually have a backup dish as well, a small, much smaller backup dish on our main mast. If you ever see an image of this vessel, the satellite dish is the most prominent feature. It's about the highest part of the vessel. But we have a backup dish that lets us reach out over a phone to connect to support. And in addition to that, we carry satellite phones So we can use those to reach out and get reconnected if need be for any reason.
Is there a reason our dish looks like a big ball instead of a dish?
So there's actually well, the dish that's in there is quite circular. I mean, it's not
a dish.
yeah, it's a dish, and so that ball is just a radome to protect it from the elements.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we
it
shoot
used to
right
look
through
like
it.
just a dish, like a big TV dish in the back, and then with our
And
donation, a new system. from
And
Cobham
the
CTEL.
way that Cobham CTEL does it is they put a lot of the electronics on the dish itself. So the amplifier, etc., you can have in the radome now, and so that radome is actually air conditioned. So it's a climate control tool as well as protective.
No change.
So if you were to walk next to it here, you'll hear the fans from the air conditioner up there.
Cool.
And it's a great lesson in physics because when you're working on those and you turn off the air conditioner and you're working in there, as you go up about every 6 to 10 inches, it probably goes up 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yep.
As that ball is heated by the sun.
Just standing up inside.
And so
we started off.
if you climb up a ladder to
pretty
access some of the
separate.
equipment you're working in there, your
and,
head might be in an area that's 20 to
if we
25
started off
degrees
dead on,
warmer
I
than
think
your
going
feet.
in a straight line, it would stay.
I
dead
haven't
on,
ever
but
felt that.
because
Now I want
any
to.
kind of
Yeah.
like heading changes.
And I'm
It's,
like, let's turn off the
although,
satellite so
yeah,
I can
yeah.
climb in.
so
there.
we can climb in there and just
Mhm.
and
There's been
and it is really
it's
amazing
just
how
it's
easy
drift.
it is to move that dish just by
yeah.
I didn't, the 100 times a second rate, I hadn't
They're
heard that
drifting
number before.
together.
That's cool.
And the funny thing is when you go to the factory to be trained on these,
5, 10,
this is just one of those
15, 20,
practical
25,
things.
30,
Of course, it
35,
makes sense what you
40,
want to think of as
45.
a technician just learning to work on that system.
Yeah, slightly.
When you open up the hatch to
as
work
we
on the
go over
dish,
here, yeah.
the very first thing you do when you're trying to solve a problem is
We'll just
look
go
on the
here. So we
floor
might miss some of the tall stuff. We'll just go
because
this
something
way.
might have fallen off of it.
And it's unbalanced now, and the little
And now
motors
it's-
can't push
now
it.
it's unbalanced. The motors are having a hard time. You're missing a part.
Yeah.
You know, it could just be a screw or a nut or something
It's
that's
fallen
fallen
off.
off and your balance is off.
Nice.
But you do, when you're balancing it, you start with weights like you would balance a car tire, and they can be in 5 or 10 pounds if need be. And then that's your gross adjustment. You keep adding or subtracting those to different parts. But you get down to your final weighting is washers. You're putting
Lovely
washers
piece.
on different parts of it.
It's amazing.
And with the command and control capability you get, though, I mean, that's one of the huge benefits of the telepresence-enabled research vessel, is we could encounter an organism down here and within a very short time window have a subject matter expert interfacing with us. Do we collect this organism? Has this been seen? Explain its behavior. We could do a month-long expedition where we're looking at tectonics, and one day of that expedition we're going to look at a maritime heritage site. And so
It
we
could
can
have
have
been
worldwide experts
compensating for
participate
this
in that
change in
one
current.
day, whereas the other model was 1 or 2 or 3 of them would have to go to sea for a month.
Just to be there for that day.
Just to be there for that day.
Whatever day it ends up being of
Right.
that day 1, day 31.
Yeah. Yeah.
That-
I had a-
It just,
Had a hit on Argus again. We're not moving now.
Yep.
have we ever had issues with the satellite dish and had to repair it in the middle of the ocean? Yes.
We had a problem one year. Luckily, we were doing multiple vessel operations, and so there was a minor issue that affected our ability to connect to shore. But what we did is, I happened to be on the other vessel at
Yes,
that
you
time,
did. I was here.
and so we put a Wi-Fi hotspot up on the outside of our vessel, and Nautilus came alongside to sip off of our internet. And I actually got a great photo of that, of Nautilus through the bridge windows of the other vessel.
Nice.
Because we were fairly close.
Yeah, I have a couple
I-
of pictures
I
you
could-
took during that.
I could
cruise of-
identify individuals
Yeah,
on Nautilus.
It's kind of like modern day piracy, you know?
Yeah.
a little bit. Yeah.
Steal your internet.
Pirate radio.
I come for your internet. We're here for the Wi-Fi's. Yeah.
As I recall, we had fun with naming of the Wi-Fi hotspot, etc.
Yes.
FBI surveillance van.
Yeah.
If I remember, it's also like pretty. It was pretty funny because we're in the middle of the ocean and we're like, "Hey, what's the Wi-Fi password?"
Right.
Like someone's
like
gonna
s-
steal
And we're
it.
like
Yeah.
snuggling up. Yeah.
And the people on
Yeah, you can't let just anyone who's in the coffee shop onto the.
Right, yeah. And
Yeah,
the people on
so-
Nautilus who were
Those-
using the
those
Wi-Fi had to go up
kayakers,
on
they
the
always
monkey
come
deck.
by
And it
and
looked
steal our
pretty
bandwidth.
cold.
It was cold. It was north.
That was North Pacific.
Uh huh.
Is that axial? Where were we? Canadian?
Canadian. Yeah, we went. The spares to repair our system to fix that problem came into Bamfield.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it was north. And just a part of that particular operation, for the fact that a ship was even close enough and nearby that we could do that, that would not be a normal option. You wouldn't just like buzz up to another ship and ask for their Wi-Fi.
Weren't we doing 3 vessel ops that
Mhm.
year?
We were
Wave Venture?
Wave Venture.
Which is Rennie's favorite time to navigate. Very
Yes.
close by other vessels.
Close enough to talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, no.
With
that
paper
was-
airplanes.
That wasn't from this. I was on another boat close enough to talk to them.
No.
And now they're been replaced. Wave Venture was replaced by the
Cable ship, cable innovator.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the furthest north we're going this season?
The furthest north that we are going this season is the Gorda Ridge, which is between the Northern California and Southern Oregon border in that region. The farthest north Nautilus has been was our Northeast Pacific Seamounts expedition that was
Last
up
year,
into
yeah.
central British Columbia.
It was pretty much just
Yeah, near
south
near
of
Alaska.
the lowest Alaskan border.
Yeah, pretty far north.
Southernmost Alaskan border.
It's like 49 degrees north.
Sure. That's a number. I don't remember.
Yeah.
What's the furthest south
Point
the
7.
Nautilus has ever been?
The furthest south Nautilus has been in the Pacific. I have that one off the top of my head.
Either
Is
ocean.
is the Galapagos.
So maybe a few degrees south.
Yeah.
Or sorry, a few. Yeah. So it'd be
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
latitude of like
Minus 10.
-5.
Min-
I don't know if we got to -10.
Yeah, and
Did we?
then I don't know.
Has it,
Galapagos is like the equator runs through it, and
Oh,
most of our
yeah.
work was actually north of it. So I think we only got a couple degrees into couple latitudes in.
has the
So-
Nautilus ever been south of the equator in the Atlantic? I wouldn't think so.
No, I don't believe so.
Not in the
No.
lifetime of the vessel, as far as I'm
Yeah,
aware.
not in
Has
our
Nautilus ever
world.
crossed the date line?
No,
It's about to.
not till this year. So we'll get our furthest.
see.
We'll get our furthest
Golden
south
Order of the Royal Dragon, is that right?
if you cross both at once. If you cross
okay.
at the X.
It's Red Dragon if it's the
yeah,
other one.
your dragon and
Yeah.
a shellback, and if you
Yeah.
cross right at that X.
One of our partner vessels, they several years ago stopped at the date line at the equator and let people swim across.
Holy cow!
Let.
They were forced
They
to.
let
Well, the Nautilus did have
Didn't
the
they
honor
do
of
that on the
crossing the
Equinox?
Greenwich
I think they did it on the Equinox.
Greenwich line.
Yeah, it did cross the Greenwich line. Back and forth a
Went
few
through the-
times. We like punched out in the 2012 season, and
We did the
Gorn
Panama
Bank,
Canal. That's
yeah.
another sailor
Mm-hmm.
order.
And I got on board after all that fun stuff. I got on board right after we left the Galapagos.
You're a
Got to San Diego.
pollywog.
I'm not. Yeah. I know,
Pollywog.
okay.
Yeah, the the DVL has been wandering all over the place. Now it's on the other side of the USBL. That was just random chance that it looked like it was converging. It's not converging. It's just wandering around.
What we should have done is reset right at the beginning, because we actually did a heading test, which is good that it's wandering either way, but because we think we honed in the heading to where it should be. So this should just be drift at this point, not really an offset. We
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
drift. It's just a
yeah.
random walk. It's just
Right.
going to end up where it ends up.
Yeah.
These are some cool, like, little Nidarians we've seen with these two trailing tentacles.
Oh yeah, that is cool.
I saw news pretty recently that they've developed a like a cure for box jelly toxin.
Yeah, that's very recent, like super recent.
That'll remove one of the 20 things scary about swimming in Australia.
What is the longest expedition Nautilus has been on? We typically, 3 weeks is a long expedition for Nautilus. We have a 40-day endurance for fuel and food.
Yeah, food, I think.
Food
is the
feels
biggest
more
one.
limiting than fuel. Yeah, there's several 3-week expeditions this year, a couple last year. One factor as we start to go out into the Central Pacific is just that the distances we are covering are vast, and we don't have a lot of variability in the speed that the ship is going to move.
Right.
So once you go out to a really remote location, to kind of make the most of that, or to get as much exploration done as you can, while also balancing the needs of the vessel, the endurance needs, and the considerations for your staff. Understanding 3 weeks is a good long chunk to be on one project and to be working on a watch schedule, and to be just kind of in the pace of an expedition, and rounds out as a good distance. But some of our missions this year are Honolulu to Samoa and Samoa back to Honolulu. There are 1,500 miles to be crossed in that leg. No, that's not right. 2,500 miles to be crossed in that leg. I think Palmyra to Honolulu is 1,000 miles, and then Palmyra to Samoa is another 15. So
Yeah, I thought I
it takes a
remember
few
like
weeks.
direct distance being about 10 days, but that's not
Yeah.
including
During
all
those transits, at some points in time during those transits, the closest people to this vessel are likely to be on the International Space Station.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, if you look at some of the, there's some sections in between there that have 0 multi-beam tracks across it, which just really goes to show how little traffic there is in some of those areas that we'll be going.
Are we going to be doing multi-beam?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yes, we will. Yeah, we'll be like mapping the transit, on the cross, San Francisco to Honolulu, and then Honolulu to San Francisco, Honolulu to LA? No, Honolulu to San Francisco. There will be some targeted mapping, so they'll stop and map some specific grids, map some seamounts, map some.
I also think when we
Target
do those
areas, but-
transits that we just run the mapping anyway, and we try and take a line that hasn't been extensively mapped
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, they'll actually be really cool. They're trying to pair the line from San Francisco to Honolulu that we did last year, just step just off of it. So it's not just another random line out there, but it basically doubles the width of the swath of
We
what
did
we hit
before,
last year.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna start to encounter terrain.
All right.
Terrain.
Yeah, should be fine. Should be totally fine. 65 right now. 60, 50, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. So we should still be 20 meters off the deck, even at, but roughly, we'll keep an eye.
Talking about endurance, I thought it was something, I mean, we've already talked about how we appreciate the chefs,
Mm-hmm.
but it kind of astounds me how they deal with like food management and ordering enough food for all
Avery,
the
can you
crew
get your
and all
mic
the
a little
science.
closer?
The chefs
Perfect.
have to deal with ordering all the food for
Mhm.
all the people on board, which includes all the crew and all the scientists and all the guests, and they make it interesting
Mm-hmm.
and they make it last. So
Totally.
I have a
And-
hard time getting out of the supermarket with all the stuff for one recipe.
Yeah.
yeah, and they do
Let
it for
alone
what,
a
40,
month.
40 days, 30
Yeah.
days.
Yeah, 30 days by 50 people, by 3 meals a day, by 3 to 4 entrees per meal. Like, it's incredible. And it's such a hardworking job on the ship. I'm always astounded by just that time that you put in. You know, they have a certain amount to scheduling the meals on a ship, where with the staffing that we have with 2 chefs and a stewardess, other ships will have 4 meals a day because they'll have a midnight
rat.
yeah,
Mid-rat.
mid-rats, midnight rations. They'll have a midnight meal for people working around the clock. And Nautilus doesn't do that, and that's partially just based on the staffing hours. But we've kind of compressed together meals, like a 7:30 late breakfast and then dinner's at 5. But that still means that whole day, you know, it's 13 hours sort of food service by the time they're up at 5 and dinner's done
I'm
being served at
losing
6.
Hercules. Just had like 3 big black hits on Hercules, yeah. Oh, there
Oh.
it goes again. Those are big hits. Fiber. That was at 6:13:40. JD, can you make a engineering log entry for that, please?
It's fine.
Did you copy that, Avery?
Big heads.
Hits.
Hits.
Hits. Video hits.
Oh, big
loss
hicks.
of video
okay,
signal.
big hicks and
Cycle
video
the power
signal.
on the
HIT,
Argus
yeah.
topside?
Yeah, I did.
Hits.
But
Got
this
it.
is on Herc.
Yeah,
It's
There's one.
happening
Herc
again.
is fine. I was gonna look at.
It was just an Argus.
Herc.
No, that was Herc.
Oh,
Let me.
Speed still 0.7.
Yeah, engineering note.
engineering note. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
6:13:40.
Yep, 6:13:40.
Thanks, Avery.
Sure thing.
Didn't the telecast give you a level meter? Didn't there, like lights? Like, didn't it give you a level?
Yeah. I just want to see, make sure. I'm starting to eliminate variables here. Yeah, so with the cooks working, they'll, you know, kind of, yeah, it's recorder output. It's my recorder output, Bob. 1.5 shifts. It still makes from 5 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. a long run.
Mm-hmm.
Is it bouncing back and forth left and right? No, I've never seen that before. No, it does it all the time. Yeah. We have a piece of gear that will eliminate that in the future, but not right now.
Is that piece of gear called a screw?
No. It's a different way of converting that.
So that's a camera artifact thing?
It's
not
a
a physical.
frame sync trying to sync that up.
Okay. So you found some new piece of gear that...
Yeah, we found 2 that
Sorry?
can handle these. No, they're
Not
not
here,
frame
no.
syncing it. They
Why
can
am I
just
not
get
hearing
it to serial digital,
Yeah.
and
I
then
can hear you.
anything can handle it.
Yeah.
Just getting it out of that
It takes
Yeah.
composite
weird.
analog
radio
in.
thing
Okay,
that
I kinda
doesn't
Yeah.
sync and
Yeah.
Say it again.
fixes it.
Yeah.
ETA 20 minutes.
And one of them is a single card inside one of these frames, and the other one is a third of a rack, so you can put 3 of them in one rack unit.
Oh.
And we have 14 of them.
Yeah, that's a bit weird.
Just
isn't
saw Tina 4 on camera.
Nice. I missed it.
A lot of people call, I think, Tina 4s are called comb jellies, but it's kind of a misnomer. They're not actually cnidarians, or a lot of people scientists don't think they are anymore, but they're actually their own phylum,
Interesting.
which means they're more distantly related from jellies than we are from crabs.
Oh, yes.
I love this mental map
Yeah,
you're
same. I'm a
creating.
I'm a big phylogenetics.
No, I'm all
geek.
about it. This is. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I can't hear you, Gabby.
They're named after their
hear me.
teeny, which are their, not spelled T-E-N-Y, but C-T-E-N-A-E. And those are those rows of comb-like hairs along them that make them all pretty when lights are shined on them.
So our altitude's 25 now. What are we looking at for?
5, 10, 15, 20 maybe?
Okay, we will need to come up a little
so
then.
yeah, as we approach, we'll likely, yeah, it looks like it.
And we're coming up at 0.7 knots.
Roger that, unless you want otherwise.
Let's give this a go.
Randy, a question came in about could we give the ROVs a speed boost by pulling them by the tether, and would that destroy the tether, or do we do that sometimes?
We sometimes do that. We refer to it as tow mode, but we don't want to put too much strain on the cable. Although now we have a traction winch, which helps alleviate some of that strain, but in general, we can't really make too fast of a speed because the jet pumps aren't too powerful to be dragging an anchor like Argus in the water. So in general, we've kind of found that, at least from my perspective, we've been doing tow mode a lot less and been favoring just actually driving Hercules, because Hercules can drive pretty quick in this configuration rather than kind of dragging it behind us. Because we physically can't go too much faster than Herc can drive, so why not just drive it?
Does Herc handle noticeably differently when it's got like samples in it?
It can, if they're really heavy.
Like rocks?
So we're starting to get to
Bless
some
you.
distant hits on Herc Meso, but we'll be all right.
These are 10. Yeah, we're 20 meters off.
Okay.
Bob, I'm coming up just real slow. What's the actual overall depth of the shallowest we're going to be there? In that like orange or whatever. Here,
Yeah,
what's that actual depth?
I don't have a scale,
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm going off of contours. So if
Okay.
you're at 50,
I'm at 50 right now.
50 right now, so 45, 40, for this one.
Okay.
I don't think we'll quite hit the 35, but 40.
Oops, sorry, I'm pulling on you.
And this cave is E, which is at 68 meters. Something like that.
So are we hopping west to east? I haven't actually seen the hypothetic
Yeah.
screen. Up over, around the edge or over the top?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Around the edge or over the top?
We will. We won't be going quite over the top of this feature, but we are decreasing or we're decreasing in depth.
Yeah.
We're getting, the topography. We won't go over. That's what. Hold on, let me fix that. Why would that happen at a time like this? That's very strange.
So is the cave supposed to be on the other side? Like, we're going to go, like, that looks like a wall, but we're coming over the top of it.
Yes, we'll be facing west as we approach the cave.
Hopping over a good chunk of the bank.
Oh, there's a tuna. I just saw a crab in Argus.
Tell me what you know about tuna crabs.
They're not actually crabs.
Because they're closely related to toasters.
That's right.
Okay.
But they're not true crabs. I guess they're not really decapods or something like that.
Okay.
I think they're missing a pair of legs that is something that a synapomorphy or something that all true crabs have. In terms of biology, can't really tell you that much. A few years ago, there were these huge kind of rafts of them that were washing up
that.
on like beaches in Southern California, and then the Nautilus was encountering them in mid-water during ascents and descents. Which
The
was pretty cool.
parmesan?
No,
the
tuna crab.
tuna crabs,
Oh.
the red crabs. I think they might have been, there was this big El Nino that was going on in like 2014.
They're
or
a squat
2015.
lobster, yes.
Squat lobster, yeah. That also bothers me. They're not lobsters either, but that's common names for you. So, I think people suspect they were, when El Ninos happen, this water, the currents kind of reverse.
Yeah.
And water kind of...
Our delta's also closing, but we'll be headed back down soon. I'm probably going to come up I may have to come up a few more meters, but I think we're getting close to the top.
So during El Ninos, water kind of reverses usually in the Pacific.
Because our delta's only 8, I can get a lot farther out in
going
front.
kind of in a clockwise direction, and it's going south along the California coast, and then it turns west to go along the equator. But during El Nino, it kind of reverses, and so it brings all this oddly warm water organisms up into California. So there were a lot of kind of things that were new to California that were introduced then, or moving northward. So it was a cool time for seeing unique things.
Definitely.
You're just ruining everything, Avery. You're like, actually, that's
It's
a
not a
horse.
squat
It's not
lobster.
technically a
Sorry.
horse. If your name is actually Avery.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually Bob Ballard in disguise.
Curly wig.
All of us are in the front row. Our backs are turned. You could have traded